I mix what I like, what I like.
I mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like, organic, vegan, soul food from your immediate diet. Live healthy. Live healthy.
I mix what I like, what I
We're
like.
here on I Mix What I Like. You may check us out on imixwhatilike.org, where you can see all these other shows and what my daddy likes and other cool things.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to I Mix What I Like. I am Jared Ball, happy to be your host. I hope all are at least relatively well. Please like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon if you want to join, even for free. QR code right there. Put this in your socials, invite others to join you. We have a great show that just got infinitely better, almost at the kind of on the fly at the last minute. I will rejoin the chat in a little bit, but we only have a relatively brief period of time with our next guest, so I want to get right to him. Somebody to me who is a legend for a number of reasons in broadcasting. I followed him into Pacifica. I don't even know if he knows this, but he was part of the inspiration of why on the opposite side of the country I wanted to get involved with WPFW here in the Washington, D.C. area. And when I was, as I said, a drummer for the greatest funk band in Western Maryland between 1997 and 1999, I actually gifted his book to my bandmates in Mama's Biscuits. This classic book, Funk, the Music, the People, and the Rhythm of the One by RickeyVincent, with a foreword by George Clinton. And I couldn't think of anybody better to reach out to than RickeyVincent to talk about, among other things, the recent passing of DAngelo. So without further ado, Ricky, brother, Professor Vincent, it's good to see you, hear you, meet you, re-meet you again, re-engaged. I don't know if you remember, it's been some time, but peace, welcome. Thank you very much for jumping on, and greetings.
Thanks for the invitation, Brother Jared, man. I've been following you for many years.
So it's an honor. Likewise, I appreciate that. And I'm glad I reached out and that you were available, and I'm also glad that you put me on because I had missed it, unfortunately, to the recent tribute you did on your show. I was getting confused. KPFK, right?
KPFA.
KPFA.
What
Sorry about
the
that. I keep doing.
original?
I knew I was going to do that. The original. That's right. That's right. And the link is in the show description to that show, and which I encourage people to check out because one of the beauties that is afforded on radio that we can't do here is you got to play a lot of great music. And
Without commercial
DAngelo,
breaks.
without commercials, and DAngelo. Anyway, so let me just invite you to offer up some first thoughts or your reflections since his passing, and
Okay.
maybe if you would put him in some of the context of the history and genealogy that you talk so much about.
Yeah, I mean, I was in stunned shock like so many of us. And then it quickly sort of dawned on me that DAngelo devastated people from all walks of life because people had connected to him in a lot of different ways. Obviously, he had the hits as a soul balladeer, as a lover man. And DAngelo himself had ambivalence towards that because he had other dimensions as an artist, as a human being. And that was part of the reason why he was reclusive, relatively speaking, for people of his musical stature. Why he was many years in between his albums and things like that. He wanted to control who he was, not just simply his professional output. But it hit me hard because I saw him as the future of the funk. And people said, well, what do you mean by that? He doesn't talk about drugs like Rick James. I said, well, the funk is quite a bit deeper than that. And DAngelo understood that. And you could tell right away with the references in his works, the hooks, the lines, the statements that he would make, that he understood a much, much bigger picture about the music and just the flow of Black creativity and what it represents. And he was tapped into that. However, he was in an industry that was going to hyper focus his the freak show. They were going to hyper focus on whatever element of his physicality, as opposed to his wisdom and masculinity as a young visionary Black man. Okay, those are different things. And so he was much more thoughtful than the apparatus of exposure that he was subjected to. He was too thoughtful for that. So he was always going to have an ambivalence about that. And it's hard to be in the machine and do something with the vision beyond it. I think of folks that control their output. People like Sade. She shows up when she wants to, does the work, digs deep, puts it out, and then shows up whenever it suits her, and she controls that. As a consumer, that's how it feels. DAngelo didn't have that opportunity necessarily, and when he would do shows, and I've noticed this, maybe you have too, you see an R&B superstar that might have a lot more to say, but two things are going on. The industry has directed them towards a certain style, and a lot of their audience knows that and goes for the hits. And that was the thing back in the 70s when I was collecting music, that there were artists that had more to say than just the hits on the radio. Okay, and DAngelo sort of was an example of that, even in the 2020s.
You mentioned if we could, you mentioned that DAngelo understood he was tapped into something much greater than what was being narrowly defined musically and commercially. Uh, I just was revisiting your book again, and you quote. I just always shout it out. You quote Barry Walters right at the first paragraph of the introduction, and give me one of my favorite quotes when discussing a definition of funk music. And you quote Walters as saying, trying to put that thing called funk into words is like trying to write down your orgasm. And I've always thought that is as brilliant a way of putting it as possible, and great and greatly provocative, obviously, for an opening paragraph. But then you also talk, you do take it more, a little bit in a more serious political and cultural direction by asking, why a book about funk? And you talk about funk is deeply rooted in African cosmology. The influx of technology has in many ways provided a further impetus for most Westerners to obsess over the aesthetics of curbing their instincts. But for uh, 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 the African descended world, it was a chance to redeploy and redefine and redevelop a new form of what would be called funk. And you even describe it as this vengeance against nature is also manifest in the obsessively cruel and sexually violent treatment of blacks against whites throughout American history. So funk you describe as part of this array of responses. It is the funk which has provided the modern musical backdrop and form for explicit confrontations of the vicious racial legacy of America, and so on and so on. So um, again, I love the classic book and that description of funk, and it does seem like that is something of as you've already sort of described the things that DAngelo was both engaged and struggling with. That is the response to this vicious anti-black environment, but also this naturally funky, emotive, sexual, vibe.
Yes.
So go ahead. Yeah, please.
It he was and his his super fans know he was unabashedly physical. He had physicality, he had sensuality, he had he had a presence, and that was part of his craft. And it's always been sort of a conundrum for people like Marvin Gaye, for people like Sam Cooke, who had artistry and vision and a sense of social justice. And as part of their multidimensional character, they had all of these other extremely appealing qualities that um, fit in the realm of the industry that will fetishize the narrow scope of the African American in the public. Um, so it was bittersweet. I'll just put it that way. And recognizing his passing made me realize his work, and there were quite a few others that do this. He always referenced the past. You hear it in little hooks. You hear it in the cover songs that he does, and things like that. But it was a means to sort of setting him up to move into the future. So, like Sankofa, you want to look at the past to provide your path towards the future. And that's why I felt like he was the future of the funk. He was unbounded. He was uncontained. They couldn't tell him what to do. He would go ahead and do it and then market a certain slice of that. And, I felt like he was ready and willing to move further in that direction. Um, and we were willing to follow him, but I would say, think about his last album title. It was called Black Messiah. Now, for all we know about DAngelo, he was, like Bootsy Collins was ambivalent about Bootzilla, but he still did it. the whole idea of being the focal point, being the center of the storm, or the 100% into that is let's just say fraught with contradictions. Okay, and I remember Shock G from Digital Underground used to talk about that. He said, to be a big rapper, you got to be egotistical and an asshole and a jerk and a clown, and I'll just let Humpty do that, and I can be myself. And he literally created an alternate personality to go and interface with that. And DAngelo, decided early on he was going to be himself and grow. He was going to grow musically. He was going to grow the understanding of the history. If you look around the clips, there's a clip of DAngelo and Bobby Seale driving around the streets of the Black community to sort of soak in, what was the energy of the Black Panther Party? What was that all about? So, who knows how far down that path he was going, and he could have gone. But that's what human beings do. Unfortunately, in our corporate controlled entertainment industry, that's not recognized anywhere close to the level it should be. And that means youngsters with skills and an ability to grow aren't necessarily exposed to what they could and should be exposed to. And now we have his catalog as sort of a fixed entity now to build on.
So just quickly, that's something I want to come back to, but just quickly, that album, Black Messiah, I mean, it starts off with him literally incorporating words from one who would have been targeted as a successor to Malcolm X as a Black Messiah in the FBI COINTELPRO efforts, that is Fred Hampton. And then he also blends it with the voice of Khalid Muhammad, who might have also been similarly targeted for his work, and that's just something you don't hear a lot about or hear much from in today's music, as was once popular at a time when I was growing up. And I'm not sure, did we just lose? I think Ricky just froze up there, so we'll hopefully get him back. What I'm going to do, though, is in the interim, and as we hopefully get Ricky unfrozen, is I did want to play a clip from the incredible tribute that Ricky just did to DAngelo. Again, the link to the full show is in the show description, and where he plays a lot of music from the catalog that DAngelo is not unfortunately given enough credit for. But in there's this clip here that I want to play of DAngelo in conversation with, I believe, Nelson George, and but it sort of explains where he was coming from musically and the tradition that he was looking to carry on. So if I can.
Oh, yeah, that's how you give him something. Yeah, DAngelo live. You won't forget it. Ooh, yeah, we got to deal with the fact that he's here forever, but he's no longer with us. Man, I got this is a little bit of him with Nelson George and that Finding the Funk, kind of talking about the music, the way a funketeer can explain the music.
What funk really means to me is it's black rock and roll. It's when George said we have returned to reclaim the pyramids, that's what that represents to me. We're showing you and we're coming to reclaim what's ours, and this is ours. Rhythm and blues, what you call rock and roll, this is our music. It's not just about, no disrespect, but, white boys playing guitars. It's not what, we kind of invented this. So, and it's just like a reclaiming of that,
How does funk play a part how did it play a part in your development? What's the first time you recognized funk as a different thing from, let's say, gospel or jazz or whatever?
Well, the first one to kind of like be the catalyst to kind of like point the way was Prince to me. That was it for me. And I was so young when say Dirty Mind came out, like, to me that was the shift. You know, that's when he kind of put his flag in the ground. And I was, what, 7 years old. So I was so young, but my brain was so open for what it was. But I mean, that was the catalyst, because everything that I guess would kind of influence him, or that I learned influenced him, that's what I wanted to go seek after. So, you know, I went and aggressively sought after James Brown, or, you know, George Clinton in Parliament, Funkadelic. I could tell that he was influenced by Ohio players, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, he kind of, you know, pointed me in the direction to hear all that. And I don't know, I guess during like the late 80s, early 90s, when sampling became such a big thing, and it was about, you know, crate digging in the crates and getting samples and finding new breaks and what have you. And I started listening to things like Band of Gypsies that sounded like, I couldn't tell whether if it was made back then or if it was made now, you know, because the same beat, it sounded like Premier, you know what I'm saying? Like Buddy Miles, the way he was hitting those drums sounded like Premier to me, you know, or the Meters. When I first heard the Meters, I was like, that shit sounded like it was made just now, you know, sound like Marley Marl or something, you know. So I guess that was the thing, because I started recognizing these common threads that kind of put all these things together. Hip hop, music that was being made back then, like the Meters and, you know, Band of Gypsies or what have you. I heard a tape just recently of when James first got Bootsy and Catfish and them from King Studios or whatever, and they were like opening up. They were opening up for, you know, the real James Brown band. And so they just did like an instrumental set. So they was doing Jimmy, they was doing Power of Love, they were playing the Meters, you know what I'm saying? It's boosting them like rockets. So it all makes sense, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of coming from the same tree, you know. But I think too that most people, when they think of funk, they hear, you know, Funky Worm, synthesizer, and they're thinking about Roger Troutman and Zapp type things. But to me, funk, that's like the later incarnations of it. Like, to me, the essence of real funk is not about all that bells and whistles and all that. It's really about black rock and roll.
Did we get you back? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
I don't know how that went down. So
Oh, I got to turn this off here. My bad. Look. I don't know. I'm glad we got you back. I don't know how much. I know you only have a few minutes, but I did want you to say a word or two about that section there, because and then to follow with what you were talking about a minute ago, as you all play and demonstrate on that great tribute show you did, his approach, and then his live performance, his the rare cuts. There's a double live album you encourage people to go try to find and play some of. I mean, it just sounds incredible. But he did all the stuff that I know Mama's Biscuits, you know, the Meters. That's how I felt the first time I heard Sissy Strut and you know, Jimmy's Band of Gypsies specifically, not just Jimi Hendrix, but with the Band of Gypsies, which is a whole different, important, I think, experience, pun intended. And then the Prince connection.
And
So,
he talked about
yeah.
the Prince connection as the opening, the portal to open the door, because Prince was open. You listen to one Prince album, and you're like, wait a minute, there's no boundaries here. Wait, I'm allowed to be exposed to this beyond boundaries sensibility. And DAngelo recognized that right away as a child, And then he spoke about digging deeper into the influences that led Prince to where he had become. And that led him to P-Funk. That led him to the Meters. That led him to black rock and roll in a larger sensibility. And and once you understand that, you realize the labels really are meaningless. The idea is the freedom and the power within the freedom that you have. And he recognized all of that. That's part of that phrasing on Black Messiah, where he uses Khalid Muhammad and he uses Fred Hampton. He uses these people that were unbounded, right? The system had to did what it had to do to contain them. And so he understood all of that, but he, as an artist, he understood you can't you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. So he said, here's some, here's some electrolytes for your spirituality, but you got to drink it yourself. You got to get into it yourself. So he was brilliant in that way, and it's a bittersweet thing that we're all kind of forced to evaluate him in that context. When we lose somebody, you all of a sudden the sense of the container has been sealed. And it's not quite sealed. There's more work. People said him and Raphael Sadiq were working on a fourth album. So, there's certain to be more. But what he represented, what he did, and it really helps define a generation for the African American community and the experience here. The problem is there aren't that many venues and voices for even that recognition to be articulated. What you are doing, what many of us are doing is important, but that doesn't mean, people are going to recognize DAngelo beyond the love ballads.
No, right on. And I think you're right. It's unfortunate. And I just want to encourage people and other collectives. We went to a DJ collective tribute to him in DC. By the way, he also shouts out DJ Premier. Not only did he work with Premier, but he mentions him in that lineage, which for me, as my favorite producer of all time, that is just another level showing his recognition. But I just hope more people, will do those kinds of tributes. Obviously, the work that we're all involved in, to the extent we can magnify it, is important. But you're right. I worry immediately that too much of his great work and his importance in that tradition is not going to be fully appreciated. But anyway, I know you got to go. Any last thoughts or comments or reflections before you go? And again, thank you very much for jumping on.
Well, I'll go a few more minutes since we lost some time.
Oh, okay, sure.
With the technical special guest technical difficulties.
Right.
That's how we play it off on the radio.
Yeah.
So we got a special guest. But I just feel like people should go to school on DAngelo. And if you look at the Voodoo liner notes, he says in there, people need to go to school on Sly Stone. Sly and the Family Stone. That's where you need to go. And that's the same album that has his, hit-making love ballad. And so the contradictions are baked into everything about him and about the industry. And, I think the music is thriving and growing and expanding as much as it ever was, but exposure to that music is going in the other direction. It's getting locked down, and that's difficult. But that means it's incumbent upon all of us who sort of entered the arena as free thinkers in many ways because of the artists that showed us the way. It's incumbent upon all of us as custodians of the culture to make sure it's accessible, to make sure those ideas are present. And and the next generations can pick up on that and run with it themselves.
Did you ever did you get to see him live, by the way?
I don't think I ever did. I felt like I saw him live because of the handful of things he did. You know, he did the BET, sort of a return engagement, where he did a music medley. The way he approached that Saturday Night Live thing, doing the charade, which was an important sort of Black Lives Matter anthem, the way he framed it. And I'm sitting there, I don't know if you do this, but I was like deconstructing the entire context of that, because that was the second song of the night. And the first song was a love ballad that I just sort of, you know, just pass the time through. And I was like, is he going to say something that needs to be said? And he showed up with that. And that, again, that's a struggle for every Black public figure, essentially. When and how are you going to, you know, really let yourself out? That kind of thing. So I felt connected to him and his vision early on. Just the blues on the first few bars of Brown Sugar, I was like, oh, dude. And but it was about being the whole person. One thing of you know, the racism, white supremacy thing is that they want to not just dehumanize, but one-dimensionalize the things that we are about, and keep it as simple as possible. So in one line and one phrase, our life's work can be reduced, things like that. And DAngelo pushed against that and showed us a way to push against that. His whole abbreviated life.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I didn't get a chance to see him live, and I tried to go to a show. He wasn't able to be there that one time that I showed up at a show, and then as I said, I had been waiting for an opportunity anywhere in the world, because I knew he was the one. Outside of my beloved go-go music, the one that's going to get me out the house to go see a show, and I wanted to go see a show, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to see it. Having seen Prince twice, I felt like DAngelo was the only one left that I was aware of. I know there's a lot of great talent out there that's not as famous, but that I was aware of, that I really wanted to get to see, and I just didn't get a chance. But as you said, we get his catalog. You introduce folks to an extended catalog beyond the more popular albums on the show that you did, again, linked in the show description. And then I do want to just say, I hope folks, if they haven't already, go back and get Brother Vincent's book. I mean, it's still perfectly relevant, and gives a great history and approach to the traditions that you hear DAngelo talking about in that clip and elsewhere. And so yeah, but yeah. That was all I had. Yeah. But again, if you feel free to take your time and say anything else or raise any other issues. Well, yeah.
I want to thank you for continuing to do what you do. There's a lot of flash in the pan. You know, I got the black thing going on over here, and then a week later, it's gone. It's changed. It's turned upside down. It's, you know, it's put in jail. These things happen. So sustaining the platform is, in every context, a struggle. And but you know, the potential is great, and the potential for misinformation, for losing the legacy, that is great also. I should mention, I guess, I've been on the radio now for 40 years.
Yeah, wow.
And on the 31st, I'm doing the 40th annual All Bootsy show, because as soon as I got a show on the history of funk, I was like, wait, I can play Bootsy 24 hours? Wait, I can just play nothing but Bootsy? So that's on the 31st. That's the 40th annual All Bootsy show. And it's, it's always the funkiest show, no matter what he's doing, whether it's D-Light or the JBs or the landing of the mothership, whatever it is.
What about, real quick, what about Childish Gambino? What was the situation with did he was do you know anything about when he did that song Redbone? It's clearly a Bootsy tribute, if not, I'm assuming tribute and not theft. But I never did look into that, and it just reminded me when you said that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and for a minute, I was like lined up in the Childish Gambino lane. I was like, okay, I'm rolling with you. You are bringing it back. You're looking back so that you can go forward, and it seemed like the right direction to go, the right thing to do. It brought his skill set out there, and this is where it gets a little tricky, because he didn't necessarily sustain that approach, but he got into it almost on a whim, almost like, ooh, I'm gonna have some fun with this. And that's kind of necessary. If you're not hungry, if you're not feeling it, if you're not, and as a music fan or a crate digger, you can hear an artist, you can hear when they're inspired, you can hear when they're hungry, you can hear when they're punching the clock, okay, if they have gone through a path. And so I appreciate what he did when he did it, but it wasn't necessarily a part of who he is. He's got television to do. He's got these other sort of dimensions, and he's not the only one. Even Sinbad brought a band together when he wanted to. I forget the name, the Skillet Lickers or something. But he wanted a backup band to do his thing. And when you got to catch people when they're inspired.
Hey, look,
Otherwise,
Sinbad
you
had
won't
Chuck
be
Brown
inspired.
as his theme song, so he'll never be salute to Sinbad forever just for that alone. He had that Chuck Brown theme song intro to his show. I was like, all right, yeah, okay, go ahead, yeah. Anyway,
Well,
so
see, he speaks. There are ways you speak to folks
yeah,
on certain level, and it can be an instant. I remember seeing a Rick James concert, and in between every hit song, there was like a 45-second interlude of some classic black music form, of some swing jazz, of some reggae, some just out of nowhere, some big band thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're educating people while they're getting hungry for Mary Jane and standing on the top and things like that. And there are ways you can make a great artist knows you can make your message loud and subtle and weave it together all together, put it all together all at once. And those people, they cracked the code, and they're worthy of in-depth study on not just the academic level, on just your whole spirit level.
no, absolutely. Well, RickeyVincent, man, thank you very much again. I really appreciate you. I encourage people to check out your work, linked in the show description. And on the 31st, be there for the annual Bootsy, 24 hours of Bootsy. That sounds that's
Oh
great.
no, it's just our regular show. I suppose I could have hit
It's
him
not
up.
24 hours. You should make them do 24 hours
I
over
don't,
there. I thought they
well,
let you take over the whole station.
I've had a lot of co-hosts in those 40 years, and I tried to pull them back, and they're all over the country now.
Okay.
They passed, so it's not the shebang it should be in that respect, but it's gonna keep going.
Yeah, no doubt.
Goes on.
All right. Well, congratulations on that. Thanks again for doing this. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. And thanks. Peace to you, because I know you fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And keep the funk alive. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All
You
right.
do the same, man.
Like this, indeed. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you very much. All right, everybody. big salute to brother RickeyVincent. Please do check the link in the show description. The tribute show he did to DAngelo, which is linked there, but is phenomenal. And then the broader breadth of his work is as well. So please check that out. So as a quick segue before we get to some other stuff, and I invite you again to like, share, subscribe, and all those good things. I want to just play a couple of clips here related to DAngelo, and of course my favorite Pocket Groove and the overlap, which is phenomenal, and of course DAngelo being the legend and so tapped in to Black community and funk and groove and Pocket, knew exactly how to pay tribute. So
One more time, I want to get a jump on some of the vocals that we got here. You ain't gonna do no solo, brother, if you keep what you got. When I count the 4, I want everybody to let the drummer go. I count the 4, I want y'all to come back in. Here we go.
Sugar, we'd be in the car and he'd be like practicing to it because he'd be thinking about how he's going to do it his way. But so might have something. And then see that. Yeah, might have something in store for you.
Chuck Brown's son sounds just like him. All right, just a little bit there. Found some, you know, I've been in some shows where they get into that and they hit that, and well, the Pocket makes everything better. But the one thing I forgot to bring up with RickeyVincent is that I would have wanted to make the point with him and hear his response that I do think the only time I've heard someone do a Prince song better than Prince is DAngelo's cover of "In My Hair," which I do think is better than the Prince original. So just another, from my humble vantage point, a tribute to how good DAngelo was and how funky he was. So I also wanted to acknowledge that, of course, Zenzi Bell had been and had seen a live show Every time I see Zenzi's Instagram, she seems to be leading the life that all of us would want to lead. So I'm not surprised. So salute to her. And if I can, before we move on, just to catch up with a couple of earlier comments. Peace, Pancho. Good to see you again, and thank you for incorporating and doing that assignment. Thank you. I hope it was revelatory in some way for everyone involved. And thank you, Fabby5, for appreciating the intro mix that I did. Mark Anthony and the Vibe Band put into a blend. Thank you very much. And thank you. Had fun over there with Mtume and Trevor talking about one battle after another. And it's a good time, good time. Thank you for becoming a member. Left Knowledge, welcome, welcome. And thank you for becoming a member, Terrain. Appreciate you. Welcome, welcome. And everyone else, peace, welcome. And now I've gone too far. Oh, nah, yeah, nah. It's just the seated two-step. That's all it ever is. The two-step is whoever came up with that back in whenever the first dances were created. Salute to the two-step. The two-step never fails. It's perfect in any situation, seated, standing. It doesn't require threats to existing or future injury. It is just a beautiful, so that's all it is. And then, you hit that little, the little tambourine strut, the little, that's it. But every time I hear it, and it works when I'm in a bad mood, I put the pocket on. It may not make me feel entirely better, but it always elevates. So yeah, two steps is all you need. I'm not out here doing, kid and play and all that. All right. Couple other things that I do want to get to before we get out of here today. And as you see, I didn't even change. We taped, we had to pre-record for Saturdays with Renee. And so this coming Saturday, you're going to get a really good discussion with Lawrence Grand Prix. And hold up, Renee put the phonetic spelling for me. And Alec Karakatsanis about propaganda and violence. It was a great discussion. So that'll be airing on Saturday morning. And yeah, so please make sure you're signed up over on Black Liberation Media to the extent that you aren't already. I can't imagine how that would be or why, but all right. But a few other things that I did want to have a little bit of. Oh my goodness, I forgot. Hold on. Oh my goodness, hold on. We're not finished with the DAngelo part. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so again, big salute to RickeyVincent. I did get a little discombobulated when we were able to quickly arrange for him to join me this afternoon and morning for him. But there's something else, and I mentioned it. Okay. So I mentioned I've seen Prince live twice. So to the extent you pay attention to me at all, you know how much how high I value Prince as an artist. And DAngelo as well, and now both of them gone way too early. And I think there's a lot to be said about both of them in terms of their talent, the lineage and genealogy, musically, politically, racially, and religiously that they come out of. The Larry Graham Prince situation notwithstanding, perhaps, but also their engagement or lack thereof with celebrity. And I went in maybe my algorithm or whatever, but I had not seen this, and I'm a little bit glad I didn't, because I admit some form of jealousy that when I had reached out to the phenomenally talented Ezra Edelman to do an interview about his never apparently to be seen 9-part, 9-hour Netflix series on Prince. And he declined. He did apparently 7 or 8 months ago go on with who was described in the interview as his friend, Pablo Torre, on Pablo Torre Finds Out, to talk about that ill-fated series, which is infuriating that we're not going to apparently get to see it. And it's more infuriating, I admit, that I'm not in the friend circle of Ezra Edelman to where I would get invited to one of the private screenings that Pablo and others apparently have gotten to see that has that shows how great. And in fact, during their interview, as a way to respond to the criticism of the Prince estate that the series Edelman made makes Prince look bad and more akin to an R. Kelly, they said, which is ridiculous. Edelman points out that that's not only not true, but then to make that point very quickly, he asks Pablo Torre, the journalist from ESPN, Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. I'll put the link in the show description for the whole thing. I do actually like the podcast whenever I see it. But I'm not gonna lie, I was really bothered by this because first Pablo acknowledges the more or less 10, he's like not even 40 yet. So Edelman asks him about his age, and yet they're described as friends, Edelman and Torre. And this is how Torre got to see the thing. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not. I wish one of the few times that I really wish that I was, whatever it is, talented, liberal enough, or whatever it is, to be in those New York Times-y elite circles where you get to see things like this. But it was really bothering to me that Pablo Torre says, I'm like 39 years old. He says, and Edelman says, so what was your relationship to Prince? He said, I didn't have one. Like, I didn't listen to him. I didn't really, pay much attention to him. I knew he existed. He was, all right, whatever, Purple Rain, da. And then Edelman says, okay, great. So how did you feel about him after you saw the series? And then Pablo Torre says that I think Prince is one of the most important artists maybe ever, if not just in the 20th century, and just artists more broadly speaking. So I was like, on the one hand, the point of the exchange was that for Edelman to say that seeing the documentary or seeing the series, even if you don't know anything about Prince, is not going to make you turn against Prince. It's going to make you become more enamored with Prince. Quite despite what the estate was claiming. But my point was, this dude got to see this 9-hour series and he don't know anything about Prince. He doesn't even like Prince. He's not old enough to appreciate Prince. He didn't play in Western Maryland's greatest funk band between 1997 and 1999 named Mama's Biscuits, where they covered Prince's music, where one of the shining central components of our performance was when our amazing Tiffany Scott, no relation, but maybe even as good, if not better, a singer than Jill, did Nothing Compares to You as a duet with our lead vocalist and pianist Jeff White, who can sing with anybody, and they would perform it and demolish the song. It was just under the Rosie Gaines Prince original. Pablo don't know nothing about that and got to see the series. But there is a moment in that exchange that I wanted to play where they're talking about Prince, but I think the same thing could equally be said. And if Edelman would have been able to give me the interview, I would happily ask him for this. It could be said of DAngelo. So I just want to play this one. I thought I had, all right, there it is. I thought I had it all set up here, but I just want to play this one little clip. Let's start it right about here, and then we can move on.
And like, by the way, this is one side, but this is what she wrote after the news came out about the film being canceled. Prince was a man who lived under the weight of expectation, both his own and those of the world that adored him. He built a persona so larger than life that it became a prison, a gilded cage, one he could never fully step out of. Prince's struggle with drug addiction was deeply intertwined with his relentless pursuit of perfection, an impossible standard he imposed on himself to.
And by the way, I'm not suggesting at all that DAngelo had an addiction with drugs, but I think in general, the rest of a lot of what's said here could be said, could apply. But anyway,
satisfy a fan base that craved his mystique, his eccentricity, and his ever-evolving artistry. At his core, he was a consummate people pleaser, trapped in the expectation to remain an enigma, always surprising, always beyond reach. The tragedy lies in the fact that so many refused to acknowledge the truth of who he really was. He understood this better than anyone. He knew that revealing his true self, stripped of the carefully crafted persona, would lead to rejection. And in a way, he was right. The recent choices made by Netflix and his estate only reinforced this truth. The world is unwilling to accept Prince as a man, only as a myth. Without the elaborate stagecraft, without the veil of mystery, his raw humanity is deemed insufficient. His struggles, his journey, his sacrifices, all the elements that shaped him will remain obscured. Instead, the world will likely receive a sanitized, polished version of Prince, a carefully curated illusion that erases the depth of his reality.
So I like that statement, and part of the point also was to point out that the woman who wrote that statement was someone that the documentary alleges and shows apparently had suffered some sort of physical abuse at the hands of Prince. So it was to say that he was a complicated and imperfect figure, and the series meant to give light to that. And the other thing that I thought that Edelman said that was, I thought, an interesting point in comparing what he did for the Prince series with OJ Made in America, which I still think is one of the best commercial media engagements of media, of race, class, and media in the commercial media environment that I've ever seen. I thought Edelman made a good point of saying that what he did for the OJ series was to add broader context to someone who many had already heard everything about. So it was less about inviting us to better understand OJ, but to better understand the world that produced and then interpreted OJ. But with the Prince series, it was more about the opposite of moving beyond the broader understood mythology and looking more carefully at the man himself, at his imperfections and his genius. And so I'm just, anyway, so I'm just pissed that I'm not going to get to see it, and that, people who, don't even, I'm just playing, whatever. So, all right. I just wanted to, okay, I got that. Okay. So, all right, moving on, I wanted to, couple things. So one, salute to everybody doing work within the effort to unionize laborers, and also to specifically organize faculty here in Maryland and then specifically, and more specifically in this case, to pass legislation in the state of Maryland that would allow all faculty to collectively bargain. And again, it's a small percentage of us who are not allowed to, actually. Public workers in the state of Maryland at least have the right to unionize. Faculty who are not tenured faculty in state universities have the right to collectively bargain. But those of us who are tenured or tenure track do not. and because we are considered either part of management or more specifically that we already have shared governance within the institutions, and therefore we don't need to collectively bargain. So yesterday, I, with a couple of colleagues, went and met with who I'll show you here, Sally McMillan-Robb, who is the chief of staff for Maryland Senate President Bill Ferguson. And it was my first time meeting her. And I don't know why it's showing up like that, but all right, that's a little bit more clear there. All right. And it was my first time meeting with her, and I, I'm still learning this experience. I had actually never even been to the State House. I think maybe once or twice before, but but I don't remember ever being in this particular building, in the actual State House. So I'm just not used to this sort of activism or engagement with the structure, with the power structure. But I first want to say that though we are not on the same political team and did not agree yesterday, Miss Robb or Mrs. Robb is a very competent interlocutor. She is somebody who probably we're going to hear from again at some point. I can only imagine that her political career is at the very beginning, and she's already the chief of staff for Bill Ferguson, the head of the president of the Maryland Senate. And apparently she and several of her family members, have come through Morgan State University. And when that was initially brought to my attention, I admit I predicted that would not be a positive in terms of our fight to get a bill passed to allow faculty to collectively bargain. And I was right. SallyRobb is not interested in, though she's in the Democratic Party. She's, from the conservative wing, apparently, of the Democratic Party. Certainly her bosses, and was not thrilled at the prospect of fully advocating for faculty to be fully allowed, to engage collective bargaining. But it was very interesting. So on the one hand, you get invited to this big fancy room. I mean, it's like, just like you see in TV and film, which is usually the only way I see these sort of settings. And it's again, just a reminder of old white power, even though they had some pictures of enslaved Africans and, sort of like a Harriet Tubman kind of drawn picture type of thing to commemorate where we were in Maryland, I guess, and all that kind of stuff. But, so we're invited to sit down, and we're making our case, and part of, again, the complexity with our particular issue, and I get why in the context of all the things happening in the world it would not make a lot of sense to support this, but even though we're technically in I think the 3% of the Maryland workforce that cannot collectively bargain, we are in the majority of the workforce on college campuses. That is, and this was a little bit of there was some contention in this, but the numbers do appear to be on our side, that most faculty in the University of Maryland system most faculty in the University of Maryland system are tenured or tenure track, or in some even fugazi way described or defined as full-time faculty, and therefore ineligible for the collective bargaining protection and guarantees or rights. Whereas the adjuncts and lecturers and non-tenure track faculty who are the only ones who are, but they are the minority of the faculty. So it's often projected, and this was part of the problem with the framing of the discussion yesterday with Ms. Robb, is that it's often framed as though it's this tiny segment of elite faculty that don't have collective bargaining and want it, and why should we allow that? And especially when there's a budget crisis, and Maryland, as she kept saying, was losing $700,000 a day in the shutdown, and you know, there's just not a lot of energy to support this. And I and others, we're trying to gently. I felt, because I don't really, I play a background role in all of this because I am a junior member in all of this and still learning how to properly engage. And I'm not really sure entirely what is the best tactic. Uh, just trying to massage this narrative to more accurately reflect that. Yeah, well, shared governance doesn't really exist. That is, we don't really have any ability to offer up direction and have any influence and power over the decisions made by the administration, the president, the board of directors, etc. And it was even felt, Ms. Robb was even suggesting that it would be better to have more decision-making power be in the hands of the president of the university, given the increasing relations the universities were having with the corporate and private sector. So we were trying to gently point out, well, the more there is engagement with the private sector, the more there should be guarantees to protect the labor therein. It shouldn't be, and we should want to. I couldn't quite work in how to phrase it this exact way, but I wanted to. I was trying to say that we should be trying to model democratic control over the resources, so that whether your university is increasingly becoming corporate, privatized, et cetera, and so forth, or whether you're somewhere else in the labor force, your the business sector you're in is doing X, Y, and Z, there should be more input and more protection for workers than less. And then trying to rebrand this as an issue that is only impacting a handful of elite professors when we are, in fact, not as elite as it's suggested, and we are the majority of the workforce at these institutions. It was really just another way of, as I did try to point out, a way of protecting the administrators who will claim during a budget crisis, or in terms of Morgan State and HBCUs, to always be in a budget crisis relative to the bigger white institutions, to use that as an excuse to suppress the wages of most of the workforce and have us not raise questions about the inflated salaries of those at the top. And all I can say is that people like SallyRobb are very, very well-versed, skilled, and prepared to verbally deflect and walk us away from that. So it was a very skillful verbal dance that led Ms. Robb back to saying, we're losing $700,000 a day. We've got, I can't even remember, a whole list of other problems facing the state. And she, in fact, said, we have 99 problems to deal with, and this is not one. So she even threw in like a sideways Jay-Z reference, which I thought was pretty cool and funny, but also disturbing in its application. And really, so when we walked out, what I walked out with, speaking for myself, is that once again, despite being the nominal representatives, that is the Democratic Party representatives of the majority of the workers, of the majority of the people in the state, we end up with the same defensiveness and protection of administrators and the business class and the ruling elite. And it was very clear that we did not have an ally in elected office in the pursuit of collective bargaining for the majority of the workforce at state universities. So In fact, at one point, she said, we reminded her that the bill we're trying to pass only gives faculty the right to try, if they decide by vote, to unionize. It doesn't institute a union, and it doesn't come with some sort of contract agreement. The bill is just saying you can do it. And she said, and SallyRobb was right in saying, well, we already know de facto that this is what would happen. She said, I know my constituency, and they would vote to unionize. And then I don't remember exactly how I worked this in, or to the extent I worked it in. And I was one of four people speaking with her, and I was the junior partner, so I didn't really say much. But I was trying to point out that if you know that most of the people in your state and your constituents want unionization, why are you resisting it? Why aren't you just pushing it full throttle ahead? And it's because they're listening to the narrative created by the business class, by the administrators, by the investment class, which is unions become too costly. They discourage investment and business relationships, and so on 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 and so on. Never mind that no specific contract has been guaranteed. It doesn't come with a contract. There's many ways to the contract could be constructed, and none of that mattered. So again, I walked out thinking this is why we need everything else. Like, I'm happy to support these efforts, and to I'm down with the labor. I'm down with my colleagues in the state faculty. But we need everything that we always talk about in these spaces. We need many more alternatives for electoral politics. We need movements. There's no pressure being put on these folks. She in the face of all of these well-made arguments that my colleagues are making, in the face of a state that she knows wants to unionize and protect labor, she still, even as a member of the Democratic Party that has no real Republican challenge, is like, nah. So I'm like, cool. I'm like, this is a fascinating experience, but this is exactly why I nothing. Whenever I engage these efforts, nothing in them encourages me to think that this is the best way to do it. It's the easiest, most legal, safest, so on and so forth. But I am just unmoved by. It was fascinating though. It was fascinating, and I also struggle in those moments, by the way, like when I'm not entirely sure what I should, or how I should, or how much I should, and I'm the junior partner and I'm engaging people. I'm not, and not wanting to mess things up for others that I'm working with. And I tend to fall back a little bit, not being the expert or the leader of this effort. So at one point, like, I felt myself entering into a back and forth, and I was like, let me, because I was like, just that, what you're saying. I mean, if I don't know the political sort of way of doing that, like these sort of political ways of doing. So anyway, but it was I just was like, wow, this is wild. But anyway, SallyRobb is again, just to be perfectly fair, this I think is anything, if anything, an encouragement to the kind of work that we need to be prepared for. Is Sally is no dummy, and she's no sucker, so to speak. She is sharp. She was prepared. There was some disagreement on some of the numbers, particularly around how many faculty are tenured and versus adjunct and lecturer, which is also part of the game that I'm learning about, like the way these institutions define who is adjunct or lecturer and full-time. It changes at every institution. There's no standard for it. And they manipulate these numbers so they can avoid paying faculty as much as they can. They can avoid having it seem like there's a need for collective bargaining. So, all right, I just wanted to say some of that. All right, let's do some. All right, look, I told her I was going to do this. I admit it. I had fun joining Amanda Seals on her live yesterday, and as I told her, I appreciate the production value that she puts in. She's got it. She's to her lives. So as an honorific to that, let's have a segment on talking about buying power.
Adventures in Black Capitalism, Financial Literacy, and Buying Power.
Hey, we gotta. Hey, I had fun. I had fun yesterday. So you all can judge it if you can check out her channel, or if you're a channel member here or a patron here, you can see my segment already, or you can just wait till tomorrow. It'll go live tomorrow on my channel. You can see it here. I'm saying I did. So patrons and channel members have already gotten to see it, and everyone else, you can see it tomorrow. But yeah, but in tribute to that, and to what I do like about her production value, let me hit that again.
Adventures in Black Capitalism, Financial Literacy, and Buying Power.
So first, and I have so many of these, but I'm not gonna take up too much more time here. So we're only gonna look at one or two. But one of them I thought was really funny because it involves our Black Liberation Media network. Yes, Chitty Matcha, thank you very much for catching that and supporting as usual. It was fun to actually mention Black Liberation Media, unlike Camus. So I know what to do when I go out here to these things. I know what to do. But okay, so let's do this because this was sent to me and he put a little production to it. I'll put the link in the show description. I enjoyed this, so let's check this out. It's a clip from a somewhat recent episode of Burn It Down with Kim Brown, but let's just check this out here from Dre Without, who I believe is in the chat.
1, 2, 1, 2. Now.
In the same breath, you say, okay, but the system has to go down. So then the system goes down, fuck the money, make a new system. The money does nothing. The new system does something. So that's
right. What I'm saying is that when other groups of people receive reparations, we didn't tell them what to do with their money. Or, hey,
are you shitting me?
Nigga! Japanese Americans, you get reparations. We don't need to dismantle the system. But what I'm saying is that in order for American freedom to catch up with other groups of people, equity has to be accounted for. Because other groups of people, especially the European Americans, have a 400-year head start.
Wow, brother. You deep as a Chicago pizza.
Whereas American freemen have a 400 years lag. The only way going to make things equal is cash paying reparations. Like you can't, like, let me give you a concrete example. Let's say UBI, Universal Basic Income, right? Let's say you gave everybody the same amount, $1,000 a month, which is about $12,000 a year, right? How's that closing a wealth gap when other groups of people had more wealth to begin with than American freedmen who did not in the first place? What I'm saying is that if you do both, okay, let's say you give, okay, fine, UBI, but then even you give everybody, including American freedmen, UBI, that's not enough to close a wealth gap because other groups had a head start over American freedmen. But if you give cash paying reparations in addition to UBI to American freedmen, it's going to equalize the playing field. It's going to add GDP, the dollar amount to the U.S. economy, because American freemen are the biggest consumers. What, $2 trillion? Other groups of people don't spend that kind of money.
First, I would suggest that you read Dr. Ball's book on the. Goddamn, why did I just forget the name of the book? I know Chitty Machi knows the name, and everybody in the chat knows the name, but I would advise you to read Dr. Ball's book on that idea of of black GDP and the spending and the buying power, myth.
You're not talking about MOBP?
Yeah,
Black buying power?
there we go. The myth of black buying power. I was slipping my mind because I got the book upstairs. I ain't breaking open.
You trying to play Jared like Killer Mike up here? You want to talk all around the book? You don't want to name the book though.
I couldn't remember, but the idea. So again, that idea of the idea of the faith in the dollar is pretty telling. Like having a faith in the dollar when they give you it with a system that you don't want to exist anymore. What would this dollar be worth? That's one. Two, the idea of black buying power. Spending doesn't mean you're wealthy. It just means you're spending.
Whoa. No, I'm telling you, pause.
It just means I have to pay a bill. That don't mean I have money. It just means I have to pay a bill. Like I live in a home, I got to pay an HOA, I got to pay whatever else. That don't mean I got money. It means I got bills. So the idea of money being the way to change anything makes no sense when, again, the system is the problem. Not that I don't have money, is that I live in this system. A great example, LeBron James is a billionaire. LeBron James also had nigga written on the front of his house, but he's a billionaire. So it doesn't change anything at the end of the day.
Vote any rap nigga, get a free throw, man down. Call it Amber Lambs, tell him.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So salute to Dre. I'll put the link to the show to that in the show description. I appreciate the application of the work. I need to take notes on soundboards. No, I need to update my deck. Yeah, I do. But I need to update my setup for sure. But yeah. So salute Dre. I appreciate the application of the work. And again, everybody, the just as a reminder, gross domestic product is not a measurement of wealth or income, and it does not measure inequality within a given society. So we don't want to continue to be wrong. And so I appreciate that that was brought up, and that Dre tried to not Killer Mike me, right? I took that out of there. So yeah, I appreciate that. That was dope. Always appreciate some sort of positive reference to the work and seeing people try to make use of it. And you can see how often it comes up. Like it everywhere you go, there's some sort of misrepresentation or application or understanding of these concepts. So I'm a principled hater, so I'm definitely screen recording this and redropping it on my channel, no doubt. Absolutely. Oh no, the myth was cited at recent CMB event, event I went to, but the host didn't have time to debunk it. Oh no. Yeah, it's everywhere. It happens all the time. It's pretty constant. So I'll probably save some. I got so many more. I'll probably save them for the next Saturday Night Live, which I'll be doing on Black Liberation Media when I can. But a couple other things that I did want to get to. Well, again, there's one thing that happened during the interview with Amanda yesterday that I didn't get to. At one point, she asked me about what was different about the second edition. And I only mentioned the Derek Hamilton forward, but I forgot to mention the Cryptoganda chapter and the expansion of the chapter on the purveyors of the myth, and to include the McKinsey and Company group, but which I would have liked to make in that interview, but we just went in a different direction and I forgot to do that. So, but it was fun. And again, check it out if you haven't seen it, and feel free to let me know what you think. I had a good time, and I appreciate her invitation to talk about the work. And I admit that, because a number of times I've been asked, a couple people have asked, about me accepting the invitation to her show, and I was like, of course I'm going to do it. The goal is to reach particularly Black audiences with the argument. And frankly, not everybody that should and that is positioned to grant me these interviews and the space to lay out the argument and the discussion in an unrushed, friendly setting. Not enough people do it. And and to be fair, to be perfectly fair, as much as I appreciate Kim and her show, she publicly criticized my ability to respond to questions about my book in an interview, but she has not yet also offered me space on her show to discuss it. I think I'm the only original founder of the platform, Black Liberation Media, to not be on her show. So it's all good, but I do note that. So when I saw that clip that we just played, I was like, well, at least there's some discussion of my book in a positive way and making good use on her show. And good. And
people be like, why do you go out of your way to be petty? And I'd be like, who said it was out of my way? It's directly on my route every single time. Pettyluya.
Absolutely. My new anthem. All right. So listen, there's a couple other things I did want to get to. Check this out. I don't know. And I admit, I'm sure you all are not as ignorant about this as I am, but I did not pay. I don't pay it. I have completely unplugged from mainstream celebrity outside of the stuff that we end up criticizing around here. And yeah, everybody. I'm the only one. And that's fine, except that. So I'm glad Amanda allowed me to have a full time on her show to talk about it. But Pettyluya, I love it. So I've unplugged from celebrity outside of stuff we criticize, and that I see, millennials, Jared and Mtume talking about on Imperial 80s, bringing me back to my youth and the trauma that we survived growing up on TV and film back then. But this whole piece here, I want to play, and I haven't added it yet. I'll put the link in the show description ASAP. I found this fascinating discussion that came up in my algorithm about the actress still living, Vanessa Redgrave, and her support for Palestinians. And I find it odd, admittedly, but yet when you watch this whole video, if you already don't know, it's not odd, thinking back, that I didn't know this about her. Although I've seen several of her films and she's been a celebrity literally my entire life. So I just want to play a little bit here, just a little piece here, and then a little, but this video from Be Kind Rewind, why Vanessa Redgrave gave the most controversial Oscar speech ever. But check this out here a little bit from
on
the
September
beginning.
14th, 2025, Hannah Einbinder won the Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series Emmy for her performance as Ava Daniels on Hacks. Most of the speech went exactly as you might expect.
And that's funny, too, because I actually watched that series. I actually, even though I didn't know she won anything for it, I actually do watch that, or did watch that series Hacks. And it was, semi-enjoyable at least. It wasn't horrible. It was all right.
Thank you, HBO Max. Thank you, Gene Smart. But she capped it off with pointed political messages.
Go Birds, fuck ICE, and free Palestine. Thank you.
Unsurprisingly, her statement ruffled a few feathers. But it wasn't the first time an actress sparked a conversation about Zionism, Palestine, and political advocacy at an awards show. In 1978, Vanessa Redgrave received major backlash when she said this while accepting the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her performance in the film Julia.
And you have refused to be intimidated by the threats of a small bunch of Zionist hoodlums whose behavior...
Redgrave had been one of the most visible vocal advocates of Palestinian liberation in Hollywood, and many members of the Academy believe that her speech took that support a bridge too far, resulting in an industry-wide debate about blacklisting, freedom of speech, and the role artists play in political life. So in today's video...
So I encourage you to watch the whole video because it's fascinating for a number of reasons. One of which is that the video points out that Hollywood of the day, even though they did not agree with Vanessa Redgrave, and even though she shows later in the video someone from the Zionist supportive, wing of Hollywood went up on the stage during their time and gave, a very disrespectful retort to Redgrave about what she did. But even despite all of that, they refused to ban or blacklist, or in today's language, cancel her. Largely because most of the people of that day remembered what had happened during the so-called Red Scare under McCarthyism and all the blacklisting in Hollywood and all of that, and they were determined, regardless of what they thought of the person or the politics, not to duplicate that. And yet today, absent that memory in politics, people who do much less, in some ways, risk worse. So it's interesting. The whole thing was interesting, and I just didn't know that. And then I want to play one other clip from that because just to summarize Redgrave's politics, which I didn't know either, and I'll put it in the show description, and it's also linked in the Be Kind Rewind. Redgrave made it in 1978 a documentary about Palestine that I had never. The Palestinians, which I had never heard of or seen, but did watch some of and would encourage people to watch. I mean, it's just wild, especially as we look today at all the nonsense around the genocide and the claims of a ceasefire and whatever, that as bad as things were and are now, people have been saying this for a very long time, and they were making the same exact claims using the same language and even more advanced language, and yet here we still are. But let me just play this one other little section from that same video.
By 1971, she had become a major star, and yet something threatened to outshine her career: her politics. See, Vanessa Redgrave was...
Yeah, just seeing some of the chat. We're talking about Vanessa Redgrave, who was the actual leftist in Hollywood, not Jane Fonda, which, yeah.
Wasn't a liberal. She wasn't even what we'd call today a leftist. Vanessa Redgrave was so far to the left that she made Jane Fonda look like Pete Buttigieg. She described herself as a Trotskyite communist. In her 1999 memoir, for example, she explains how discovering Marxism reshaped her political thinking. I can truthfully say that I remain absolutely convinced of the necessity of Marxism, and that not for a single day has this conviction been shaken. A Marxist approach to life and its problems and wonders is the opposite of the Stalinist dogma and rhetoric that blasted the brains of several generations. Hilariously, a significant plot detail in Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment, is that Morgan is a communist.
So yeah, I just wanted to play that little bit there to show where her politics were. I had no idea. And then I'll make sure the link is in the show description so you can see her documentary, The Palestinians. So anyway, those 2 points I thought were interesting. One, I didn't know Redgrave's politics and how much she actually showed what seems like real solidarity with the Palestinian struggle. But also the moment of the criticism and Hollywood's response, that at one point, remembering the McCarthy era, there was a willingness to accept disagreement without cancellation. And in fact, I mean, the video goes into some detail about people being told to not hire her and Hollywood saying, no, we're giving her a job. I don't like her. I don't agree with her politics, but she's a great actress. And then she ends up playing a role famously of a Jewish Holocaust survivor, and which upset some Zionists all over again. But Hollywood was like, no. So I just thought that was interesting. Interesting. All right, one more thing before we get out of here for today. Just a little bit of fun, because this was admittedly my silly bits of world colliding, and so I was like, let me just share this with you all. We can end on a kind of silly note for today. And again, please support the platform, support that of Black Liberation Media, and all the satellite reverberating outlets. But so I'm watching my favorite white guy, and the overlap is pretty self-evident.
Oh my God. Paul Davidson.
Cut your meat.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, just
Hi,
hilarious.
DJ
Charlamagne
NV.
the guy. We are the Breakfast Club. Lola Rosa is here.
Hey, everybody, it's me, DJ NV. I just want to say,
God bless you.
Here as well, and we got a special guest in the building.
Oh, my God.
We have Ben Shapiro. Welcome.
Oh,
Hey,
Ben
thanks for having
Shapiro.
me. I
How you
appreciate it.
feeling?
Yeah, doing okay.
I'm gonna haunt you.
Yeah, thank God.
Ben's got a new book out, Lions and Scavengers, The True Story of America. Very interesting read. You define the Lions
Is
as
it?
people
Did you
who
really read
uphold
that piece of crap?
biblical values.
Oh, that's right, guys. Today's a very special day. Today's a very special and beautiful day because we're looking at two terrible, stupid piece of crap books. Today, we're looking at two piece of junk books that I wasted a bunch of time reading, so you don't have to waste your life. This way, you don't have to waste the precious fleeting moments of your short life reading this dreck and garbage. And the first one we're going to look at, oh, there he's on the Breakfast Club, Benny Shapipi. Hassan Parker. There he is on the Breakfast Club a month ago to 300,000 views promoting this piece of trash. So we'll take a look at that, man. And the other book is this Kamala Harris book that I did not actually read it. I listened to it because, God, I'm not going to devote my attention solely to that. I listened to Ben, obviously I listened to the Ben Shapiro one too, because I feel like if I sat down and read Ben Shapipi's book, I feel like that could actually do damage to the tissue of the brain.
These are the hunters.
Okay.
These are the warriors.
All
These are the weavers. These are the lions.
Wow. These are the toilets. These are the... And they all need to
look at my penis.
Okay, let's read some of the 1 stars.
Let's read some of these 1 stars.
Let's read some of these on these Amazon reviews. For the book of the great...
I'm out in Miami, ho.
What's this guy say? I believe this one's positive. What does he say? Insanity. I'm on page 10 and my head is going to explode. Whoa.
Hey, be careful, man.
I'm sorry, but Ben's imagination is seriously twisted. I do not agree with his view of the human kingdom. Humans are very much like chimpanzees and bonobos. Scavengers and lions, please. Okay, 7 people found that helpful. Okay, good for you, man. Don't waste your money. Predictable and propagandizing, okay? A book about Israel. Oh, no way. Garbage. Book is mostly about Israel. These are the only reviews that I believe are not bots. Or people who are basically bots, after reading this absolute piece of turd. This is probably the most accurate review right here. Title of this review is Garbage. The body of the review just says garbage. Oh God, this is a funny review. This guy's got a real attitude right here. Check this out. Check this Pendejo.
out right here. Lions are scavengers.
Lions are scavengers. Sometimes up to 50% of their diet is scavenged or stolen from other animals that already did the work. That's probably what Ben means. I mean, he's like sneakily being honest there. You would think Ben would have read about lions before titling this hot mess. I think he formed his ideas about lions from The Lion King. Hey, shut up, man.
I want to bring in one of the leading voices in the conservative movement.
I can't
Author
wait,
of a
man.
new book, Lions and Scavengers. It says Avengers in my prompter, but I won't be tricked. Lions and Scavengers.
He's here promoting his new book, Toilets. And
Pendejo. The True Story of America, Ben Shapiro. It's good to have you here.
The true story.
So that was, I admit, what drew me to that was the on good authority that I have that I cannot be invited to the Breakfast Club, but Ben Shapiro can. And as we've been talking about for a while, the Breakfast Club is promoted by Onyx and other outlets as a positive influencer on the politics of Black America, to the extent that they're not infiltrated by the left. But Ben Shapiro can get there. So I just think that, on some one level, I thought it was wild just to see R.M. Brown making reference to DJ Envy at all. But of course, it's because he follows to make fun of Ben Shapiro. And where does Ben Shapiro get an interview? The Breakfast Club. It's perfect. So yeah, but and then on to Fox News, from the Breakfast Club to Fox News. So want to be on it? No, not particularly. I don't want to be on it, but I am noting just that I have on good authority that I was, explicitly not said I'm not going to be. It was said I'm not going to be invited, and they've used, and yet the platform has been used at least once by Killer Mike to disparage me. But I would go on it if invited, because I think, I do think, especially if it's to talk about my book, that I would have to do it in an effort to reach the audience that they talk to. But want to be on it? Not really. And I don't think I would do well on it either, by the way. But I would do it. No, I mean, yeah, I'm past left. How would I sit there with a real estate scam and an alleged child molest? Yeah, wow, yeah, that's also a good point. You know what? I keep forgetting about that part. I forgot about that part. You know what? That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a fair point. I did forget about that part. And thanks for the super chat. No, the live isn't over. Are you still there, Chad? The live, I mean, I'm still here. I hope we're all still here. But thanks for the super chat. And Brown listed. But all right, everybody, that was it. I'll leave it there. Big salute to RickeyVincent and for his discussion with me about DAngelo, and thanks to all of you for joining who were able to be here live, and to those who will see this later, thanks to you as well. Thank you, Anthony. Remind me who I am. Yes, thank you all. Sometimes we all need a reminder. Fortunately, I don't think I'll have to be, confronted with that challenge, though. They're not. Oh, but KJ Sakuma, KJS Akuma. If I could rhyme like Pharaoh Monch, I wouldn't be here. Better believe that. Wouldn't be no YouTube channel if I could rhyme like Pharaoh Monch. I don't know what downside comes with that level of genius and skill. But nah. Yeah, RIP to DAngelo. Thanks again, Sugar Shan. Welcome as a new member. Let the Girls Sing. Thank you very much. Welcome, welcome. And all right, everybody. Yeah, big shout out to all of you. Peace if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And I will catch you around. Please, again, Black Liberation Media Saturdays with Renee. Got some other things. Make sure you have the bell rung over there. Ring the bell over here so you don't miss anything. And got things coming up here as well. So, yeah, peace. Only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And I'll catch you next time here at
And what do you sacrifice? Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.